the Commonwealth War Graves National Volunteer Program Orientation Video. Hello and welcome to the Commonwealth War Graves National Volunteer Program. We are thrilled that you have chosen to spend your valuable free time helping our organization look after graves of Commonwealth War dead across Canada. This introductory video will give you valuable background information about the Commonwealth War Graves, how it was started, and the work we do across the world. We will also touch on the work we do in Canada and our National Volunteer Program, which was launched in 2025. Finally, we will review some health and safety information, which will guide and keep you safe while doing your inspections. The Commonwealth War Graves Commission. In total, over 1.7 million servicemen and women from the British Empire died in the fighting or of their wounds during the First World War. During this time, it became apparent that something needed to be done to ensure that the people who were giving the ultimate sacrifice to the war were commemorated properly. Sir Fabian Ware was the first to put together a plan to organize the dead into cemeteries and ensure that they were properly memorialized. This was the start of the organization we know today. The Imperial War Graves Commission, as it was then known, was established by Royal Charter in 1917. Thousands of small cemeteries and isolated battlefield burials dotted the European landscape, and a decision was taken to concentrate the isolated graves and many of the smaller cemeteries into existing sites or to create new cemeteries where they could be properly looked after. Once land for cemeteries and memorials had been guaranteed, the enormous task of recording the details of the dead and locating and formalizing burials and cemeteries began. By 1918, 587,000 Commonwealth graves had been identified in Europe, and a further 559,000 dead were registered as having no known grave. As part of the British Empire, Canada automatically joined the war effort in 1914. Newfoundland and Labrador was an independent nation at the time and also joined. In total, about 650,000 of them enlisted and over 66,000 died during the First World War. The Imperial War Graves became the Commonwealth War Graves in 1960. The CWGC looks after First and Second World War graves and maintains cemeteries around the world in perpetuity. Perpetuity is a critical concept. In other countries, the burial rights are purchased for a specific time, often 100 years, after which the land can be reused for new burials. CWGC is granted land forever. The CWGC was founded on the following principles. Each of the Commonwealth dead should be commemorated by name on a headstone or a memorial. Headstones and memorials should be permanent. Headstones should be uniform. There should be equality of treatment for the war dead, irrespective of rank or religion. We also maintain the records of all of the war dead we commemorate. The CWGC has an extensive archival collection, and many of our documents are scanned and available on our website. One of the most important things to know about the CWGC is that we commemorate war dead who died as a result of their service during the dates of responsibility that you see on your screen. These dates don't exactly match the dates you might be familiar with for the First and Second World Wars. There are a few reasons for this. The wars did not end on a specific day. It took time for various armistices to be signed. Also, the CWGC wanted to ensure that people who were wounded due to service and died shortly after the war would also be recognized, so the dates were extended. Many people confuse our headstones with those of Veterans Affairs Canada. If someone served during the First World War and survived, but then died later, they would be eligible for a Veterans Affairs headstone. I will go into more detail about this later. The founding member nations of the CWGC are Australia, Canada, India, New Zealand, South Africa, and the United Kingdom. Each member nation contributes funding based on the proportion of burials for each of their national forces. Canada contributes approximately 10.1% of the budget, as we represent that percentage of the overall war dead. The work of the Commission is ongoing. Researchers continue to identify service personnel who died during the war but whose names, for a variety of reasons, were not included in the original records. Every year, the graves of approximately 120 to 130 servicemen are discovered on the old Western Front alone, some of which may be identified. We operate in over 23,000 locations around the world in over 150 countries and territories. While most people think of Western Europe as the focal point of the two world wars, the CWGC commemorates casualties in every continent around the world except for Antarctica. Our Canada, the Americas, and Pacific area, or CAPA, is located in Ottawa. We are responsible for all headstones and memorials in North, Central, and South America, as well as the Pacific region, where we look after 14 cemeteries in 10 countries. Specifically, Hong Kong, Singapore, the Philippines, Myanmar, Thailand, Japan, Malaysia, Indonesia, Fiji, and Russia. Our Ottawa office has a staff of approximately 20 people, and we have about 20 staff across the Pacific region with a hub office in Thailand. CWGC operations in Canada. In Canada, we look after over 18,500 commemorations on memorials and headstones across the country. Some are located in urban areas, but many are located in remote parts of the countryside. Most are concentrated close to the US border, but there are scattered headstones in remote locations as well. You can see how many headstones we have in your province by looking at the chart on the right. The practice of non-repatriation of the dead, which was established during the First World War, meant that Commonwealth servicemen and women who died on active service abroad were buried where they died. In Canada and the US, casualties commemorated by the CWGC include those who died during training in Canada and the Americas, those who died at sea or due to air transportation accidents, and those who were injured or became ill while serving overseas and who died after returning home. Maintaining war graves in Canada can be challenging, as many of our headstones are located in remote areas requiring a lot of travel to reach. Prior to the volunteer program, CWGC staff inspectors would fly to a region of the country, rent a car, and drive to as many cemeteries containing CWGC headstones as possible. As you can imagine, this is not very sustainable and is time-consuming and resource-heavy. Sometimes I would drive over 2 hours to inspect a single headstone. It makes much more sense for someone local to check on that headstone and report back to us. We are also faced with the challenging climate and how it affects the land our markers are on. In the photo on the slide, you will see Rohan, who is one of our inspectors. In July 2024, he visited the grave that is just inside the white fence you can see over his shoulder. He sent this photo to us to show those of us in the office what a beautiful location it was along the banks of the St. Lawrence in Quebec. This headstone is located on private farmland once owned by the casualties' family. They have long since moved away. A few months after Rohan's visit, we got a call from someone in the community that 2 big storms had moved through the area and that the entire shoreline up to the white fence had been eroded into the water. We immediately went to the site and moved the grave. If it hadn't been for that local connection, we might have lost the grave forever. This is why it is so important to have people who are situated locally checking on the graves. In the past, due to the number of CWGC graves across the country, we have only been able to inspect each of our headstones once every 5 years. With local volunteers, we can get up-to-date information and act quickly. We occasionally encounter vandalism or damage to our headstones and memorials. When this happens, we make sure that the headstone or memorial is cleaned as soon as possible. The weather in Canada is a factor too. We can generally only inspect from May to October, and in some areas the season is even shorter. Climate change and ever-changing weather extremes also create challenges for us to inspect our headstones. These are the most common types of markers you will encounter during your inspections, from left to right. Upright headstones are the overwhelmingly most common. These are the ones you will probably be most familiar with. Next, sometimes you'll come across an upright as a flat. This does not mean that it has fallen over. Flats were used when cemetery rules meant that uprights could not be installed. Next, you'll see scrolls, which are wedge-shaped with a scroll detail. They are only found in Saskatchewan. Finally, there are permanent private memorials, or PPMs. Relatives would have been given the option to have a CWGC headstone, but some chose to have their own. If the PPM is the only way that the war dead is commemorated, meaning they do not have a traditional CWGC headstone, then this is considered to be the official commemoration. We do not have any jurisdiction over PPMs as they belong to the family. We still inspect them as they are the only way that the person is commemorated, but we do not clean them. CWGC flat markers can be upright headstones that have been set flat, or smaller headstones specifically designed to be laid flat. Both are appropriate forms of commemoration for CWGC casualties. Most flats are installed when cemetery bylaws require that all markers in the section or cemetery need to be set flat, or permit only one upright per family plot, and there was an existing marker for other relatives when the CWGC casualty was buried in the family plot. When a flat marker needs to be replaced following CWGC policy, for example, it's broken or illegible, our practice is to confirm why the marker is flat and request a replacement to be an upright if this is possible. We do not replace markers solely to change a commemoration from flat to upright. Private memorials can be installed by family, a military unit, or community. CWGC does not own PPMs, and we cannot undertake maintenance or repairs without permission from the cemetery. PPMs are an appropriate commemoration if the casualty's initials and surname are legible. Military details are not always included. This reflects the wishes of the family. Casualties can be commemorated on a PPM alone or with other family members. Most CWGC headstones were installed after 1920 for the First World War and after 1945 for the Second World War. Many families had already chosen a private memorial, so there is no CWGC headstone. The PPM may be the only point of commemoration for the war dead, so we inspect it, but we do not clean it. Families in Canada were not permitted to repatriate their loved ones who died overseas, so many choose to commemorate them on a PPM in their local cemetery. As CWGC's primary point of commemoration for those who died is at their grave or on a memorial overseas, we do not maintain their PPMs in Canada. While these PPMs for casualties killed overseas are not part of our operations, they are important to local history and you will likely see them throughout your cemetery visits. Sometimes you will come across what is called a double commemoration. This is where there is a family marker and a CWGC marker for the same person. Some casualties are double commemorated as historically families who had installed a PPM were still offered a CWGC headstone once they were available. In order for it to be a true double commemoration, both the PPM and the CWGC markers will have the war dead's name on them. In the photo on the left and center, both of these memorials have the war dead's name on them. During an inspection, you will make note that this is a double commemoration. On the right, this is not a double commemoration because the headstone in the background is a family marker and does not have the name of the war dead on it. In this case, you would only inspect the CWGC headstone. There are 15 memorials that we care for in Canada, including these three, which are probably the best known. Those with no known grave are commemorated on a memorial to the missing, according to when and where they died. In Canada, we care for the Ottawa Memorial, which commemorates Air Force casualties, the Halifax Memorial, which commemorates naval casualties and the Halifax explosion, and the Mechosin Chinese Labor Camp Memorial in Victoria, BC. Designed by Sir Reginald Blomfeld, The stone cross with downward sword reflects the faith of the majority of those commemorated in a cemetery. Initially known simply as the Great Cross, it later became known as the Cross of Sacrifice. The cross is usually found in sites with over 40 commemorations, and it varies in size depending on the size of the cemetery. The Commission uses 4 different sizes, which range in height from 4.4 meters to just over 9 meters. There are 25 crosses of sacrifice located in provincial capitals and large urban areas or military plots across Canada. The Stone of Remembrance, also known as the War Stone or Great Stone. This feature usually is only found in larger cemeteries. Designed by Sir Edwin Lutyens, it is carved out of a single piece of Portland stone and is inscribed with words chosen by Rudyard Kipling. Their name liveth forevermore. This phrase was selected from the King James Bible, the Book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 44, verse 14, which in full reads, "Their bodies are buried in peace, but their name liveth forevermore." The stone is the same size in each cemetery and is typically only used in sites with more than 1,000 commemorations. The stone measures just over 1 meter high by 3.6 meters long and 844 centimeters wide at the base, and weighs around 8 metric tons. There is one stone of remembrance in Canada. It's located in Winnipeg Brookside Cemetery in Manitoba. Throughout Canada and the United States during the First World War, existing cemeteries were used for the burial of military dead. CWGC graves are most often individuals scattered amongst civilian burials and can also be found in small groupings or in a dedicated military section that we call a field of honor. A field of honor refers to a cemetery plot or section reserved for military personnel. Many were established during the First World War and can vary in size from dozens of graves to thousands. Our graves can also be found in small groupings of casualties who died together, such as air crews who died while training with a British Commonwealth Air Force Training Plan school. They can also be found in family plots on private land, often in wooden areas of rural or farm properties, and in mausolea where they are commemorated on a niche. The National Volunteer Program. Our head office in the UK started their volunteer program called Eyes On, Hands On in 2019. They now have over 2,500 volunteers who do inspections as well as give cemetery tours and speak about the CWGC in schools. Volunteers can also be found in Belgium, where we have a wreath-making program. There are thousands of cemeteries with CWGC headstones scattered throughout Canada, primarily in rural areas. Many of these sites have a single or a small cluster of graves. We call these scattered. As I've already mentioned, prior to the NVP launch, our operations team inspected these headstones on a rolling basis every 5 or 6 years. That's a long time between visits. The NVP was established in April 2025 and slowly launched across Canada over the summer months. By the end of the 2025 season, we were thrilled to have engaged with just over 400 volunteers from coast to coast. Through this program, we are able to ensure that war graves are inspected at least twice a year by volunteers, and the condition of the graves, together with an image, is reported and recorded. When issues are reported, such as legibility of the inscription or damage, these will then be reviewed for action by our skilled operations team. This is a much more efficient way to make sure our headstones are kept in great condition and that our war dead are commemorated properly. How to stay safe as a volunteer. Your safety is our #1 priority. If at any time you don't feel safe entering a cemetery for any reason, please do not proceed. Reasons for this could include the weather, the cemetery conditions, the presence of unwanted visitors, or the presence of wildlife. If you encounter anything that makes you uncomfortable, or if an incident occurs while you are at the cemetery, please use the QR code on the back of your ID badge, you can see it on the screen here, to link to a website where you can send us more information and we will try to assist you. Please note that we will only be able to respond during regular business hours on weekdays. We recommend using the buddy system when you do your inspections. This does not mean that you need to take someone with you, although many of our volunteers do work in pairs. A buddy is someone you can advise where you're going and when you expect to be back. You will check in with them when you have completed your inspection, and if they don't hear from you, they can alert local authorities. Our inspectors have created this list of tips and tricks for lone working. Make sure your phone is charged and bring a lightning charger or charging cord with you. Have emergency contacts in your phone and use the buddy system. Pre-plan your route. You will be given a list of cemeteries you've been assigned to in advance. Check Google Maps and ensure that you know where you're going. We will provide you with any information we have about the site that will help you. For example, whether there's a locked gate, hours for visiting, if you need a boat to access the site. Check the weather and bring appropriate supplies. These could include boots, a coat, gloves, and hat. How are you feeling? Don't go if you're not feeling well. If you need medication, like an inhaler or an EpiPen, please make sure to bring it with you. Make sure you are giving yourself enough time. You can lose track of time while doing inspections, and we don't want you to be in the cemeteries after dark. Is there somewhere to park? Most cemeteries allow cars onto the site, but be mindful of any restrictions. If you're taking public transportation, please make sure there is a way for you to get home and the schedule for the bus or train. Avoid antisocial behavior. If something looks strange, come back another day. If you are uncomfortable, leave. Lock your car. Don't leave any valuables visible while you are in the cemetery. Generally, the more remote and secluded the cemetery, the more likely you are to encounter different kinds of wildlife. However, you should always be alert for wildlife no matter where you are. Most will not interact with you, and they'll leave when you're nearby. If you see signs or indications that a bear or moose are in the area, for example, fresh scat or poop, do not enter the cemetery. If you encounter bear or moose while in the cemetery, leave as quickly as you can. Some tips. Do not carry food with you while you are in a cemetery. If possible, leave it in the car. Make noise, ring a bell, blow a whistle, honk your horn when you are in secluded areas to warn any wildlife. Being outside in green spaces can increase the opportunity of interaction with insects. Dress appropriately, wear long pants and socks, and use insect repellent when necessary. Avoid insects that can bite or sting. Look out for nests that can sometimes be in trees or brush, but also on the ground. Monitor yourself for ticks. Wear socks and long pants, preferably light-colored clothing. You can use insect repellent with DEET. Ticks can now be found all across Canada. Not all ticks are infected with the disease-causing agents, but if the tick is infected, the risk of acquiring a tick-borne disease increases with the time it has been attached. If the tick is not attached, you can easily brush it off. If the tick has attached to your skin, you will need to take steps to remove it as soon as possible. This can be done with fine-tipped tweezers or specialized tick removal devices like the one you see on the screen. Be aware of the poisonous plants in your local area. Depending on whether the cemetery you are visiting is well maintained or not, there may be more overgrowth and the chance for encountering poisonous plants increases. Wild parsnip grows in large patches or as scattered plants along roadsides, in abandoned fields, on pastures, on restored prairies, and in disturbed open areas. Poison ivy has 3 shiny green leaves and a red stem. Poison ivy typically grows in the form of a vine, often along riverbanks. Poison oak grows in the form of a shrub and has 3 leaves similar to poison ivy. Poison sumac grows as a woody shrub. Each stem contains 7 to 13 leaves arranged in pairs. Do not cut down or handle giant hogweed. If you get sap on your skin, cover it to keep it out of the sun, as sap from the plant can cause skin to react to sunlight, which causes chemical burns. As we all know, Canada has a varied climate. Most of you will be doing your inspections during summer months from May to September, but some will be able to visit a little earlier or a little later. We ask you not to inspect in the winter, as it is more dangerous and inspections should not occur when there is snow. Monitor local weather conditions and be aware of any weather watches or warnings. Do not go if it is excessively hot, cold, or there are dangerous conditions. Dress appropriately and stay hydrated. Remember to wear sunscreen. Your CWGC hat will help protect you from the sun. When in doubt, don't go out. You can always go another day. Not all cemeteries are well maintained. Some are overgrown and contain potential hidden dangers. Cemeteries often have uneven ground that may contain flat markers you may not be able to see. Stonework can become slippery when it is frosty or wet or covered with leaves. Make sure you have appropriate sturdy footwear. Open-toed shoes, sandals, or flip-flops are not allowed. Watch for tripping hazards and loose headstones or memorials. These can be especially dangerous as memorials are extremely heavy and may not be as stable as they appear. Some graves are surrounded by curbs or have steps that can partially sink into the ground. Sometimes graves sink. Please avoid stepping into them. I'd like to thank you again for joining our volunteer program and for taking the time to watch this video. The next step of your onboarding is a live online orientation session that will focus on the step-by-step instructions on how to conduct an inspection. If you have any questions, please email me at the address on the screen. Thanks again, and we'll see you soon.